For today's thought, let's divert our attention to the book of Genesis, chapter 32, verses 22 onwards. We read about an important event in the life of Jacob. Jacob is known to us. He was born to Isaac and Rebekah. And we read about him that he was a very smart guy, a cunning guy. He, through the help of his mom, he stole the blessing that was actually kept for his brother. Even he tricked his own brother Esau and got the birthright. And we read about him that then, with the help of his mom, he ran to his uncle's house, Laban's house. On his way to Laban's house, he had a special intervention, a visitation from God, where in a wilderness, he found a rock to put his head on and he lay there. And he had a vision where a ladder from heaven came down and he saw angels ascending and descending. From there, he goes into Laban's place. He desired to marry Rachel. He worked 7 years for her. In the end of it, he got Leah. And then he worked another 7 more years. And finally, he got to marry Rachel. The portion that we are considering today is about his journey back from Laban's house. Just before he's meeting his brother Esau, at the brook of Jabbok, there's few things that Jacob does. For me, this is the most significant part in his life. What Jacob does is, he rose that same night. He took his 2 wives and his 2 maids and 11 of his children and crossed the ford of Jabbok. And he remained in Jabbok. The first thing that he does is, he empties himself. He separates himself from his wife, his maids, his cattle, his everything else. He separates himself. So now he is on his own. Let me tell you, to receive special blessing from God, we got to separate ourselves. In a busy life that we all do, we sometimes get attached to so many things. Sometimes in our emotions, we have got lots of thoughts. Now, if you look into Jacob, he would have had thoughts about the past, about the way his father-in-law treated him, about his experiences there. And in fact, he also had thoughts about the future, his apprehensions, his frustrations, his anxieties about how he's going to meet his own elder brother, Esau. So with all these things in mind, Jacob comes to a place, a standstill, where he empties himself. We've got to declutter our minds of all thoughts of failures, hopelessness, worries, apprehensions, the way people treated us, injustice we faced in life, and all that. So once we do that, we are in God's presence. We read here is that Jacob was left alone. And we read a man wrestled with him until daybreak. We don't read that Jacob went searching for this person, but somebody came to wrestle with him. And we read that this wrestle took a long time, and he saw that he had not prevailed against him. He touched the socket of his hip, of his thigh. So the socket of Jacob's thigh was dislocated while he wrestled with him. And the next verse is interesting. In verse number 26, it reads, Then he said, Let me go, for the dawn is breaking. Look, he had this big wrestle, the wrestle match in the Bible. He had this with the other person. And in the end, we can read is that the other person was so strong, was he just needed to touch the thigh of Jacob. And thus, Jacob's thigh was dislocated. But the same person is asking Jacob, let me go. Isn't that quite contrary? If he was so strong enough just to touch, to lead to a dislocation, he could have easily pushed off Jacob, isn't it? So why is he saying, Jacob, let me go. Leave me. The fact is, he wanted him to cling on to Him. How desperate are we that we need God's blessings in our life? Jacob had the blessing of his father, of his mother. I'm sure he had the blessing of his father-in-law. He had every possible blessing. He had two of his wives. And he had all what he needed in life, all the resources. But he's there. He's not letting the angel go. See, the first aspect is we should have brokenness in our lives. When Jacob was broken, he was all alone in God's presence. God led him to the second phase. That's a phase that he was being blessed. In this phase, what was happening? God says that, what is your name? It is important that we understand this question here. God still asked us, what is our name? Is it that God did not know his name? God definitely knew his name. His name was Jacob. But the fact is that God wanted him to confess his name. He was a cheater. For us in our lives, the world might have given us many names. The world might call us smart, might call us that we are faithful. The world might say that we are smart, brilliant, might call us a faithful servant of God, whatever the world might call. But really, what are we before God? We got to really confess. And we got to tell God exactly who we are. The world doesn't need to listen to all. It could be a specific thing that you talk to God and tell God, God, I'm so and so. I'm a cheater, God. Before people, I'm all right. But within my relationship with you, I'm a hypocrite. I'm not right in my relationship with you. See, in this phase, when Jacob tells out his name really to God, then God takes him to the next level. It says, your name shall no longer be Jacob, but Israel. What does Israel mean? Israel means Prince of God. God changed his name from Jacob to Israel. For me, I'll tell you something. It was not just a normal blessing, but there was a significant branding that was made there. So from brokenness, he moves into blessing. And from blessing, God branded him. As who? As the Prince of God. God can make you and me prince or princesses of God. And God can do that. When we are price tagged by God, when we are blessed by God, the world will stand in amazement of what they are going to see God accomplishing through you and through me. That God has got a great plans about our lives. But the fact is, can we break our hearts before God? Can we submit our lives into God and tell God, I want you to really bless me, God. Go through brokenness, that will lead into a blessing from God. The blessing will lead you into the next phase. That's a specific branding from God. Are we ready to receive this special branding from God? Sometimes prophets would have told us a lot of promises, prophecies of God. But look in Jacob's life. He heard all the blessings. But the greatest blessing in the life of Jacob, that his children even enjoy today, is the blessing that Jacob received at the brook of Jabbok, where he remained on his own in the presence of God. Can we spend that time in God's presence and ask God, I submit my life unto you, Lord. Help me. Lord, lead me, Lord. And I give myself completely unto you, Lord. And that kind of submission is what God desires out of yours and my life, so that he can make us a special nation, a chosen generation, a royal priesthood that can serve God in this dark generation. May God bless us.